And welcome to Nostalgia Alley. We have a great show. There's a new antique store that just opened up, and we're really excited about. The buzz in New Jersey is just so exciting. It's called Valley's Vintage. And two things we need in New Jersey. One is a good antique store, and one is a good kosher deli. And we have the first one. Elise Elfantray has just opened this store. It's relatively new, and we're going to be talking about the many treasures. And of course, we have Barry Berg, who has been on this show many times. Cards and letters are unbelievable, Barry. They want you back.
Well,
he's been on so many times. I'm going to name this the Barry Berg Show.
Well,
that's what I'm going to do. But Elise, got to ask you a question. How did you get interested in antiques?
So my mom always says that she doesn't know how it happened to me. She always says it as if I have some rare disease that I became interested in antiques. Because as she puts it, no one in our family ever did this kind of thing. But that's not true. My great-grandfather used to drive a cart down the street with a horse, and the ladies would come down and trade him pots and pans for whatever wares he had in his little cart. And apparently my mom had forgotten that, and it's in my blood. So I've been doing this for about 2 decades, and I've always wanted to have a shop of my own.
You don't look old enough to be doing this 2 decades.
Thank you very much.
And Barry, how did you get interested in antiques?
I'm a writer, as you know.
I know.
And I was writing historical material, and I was living in New York City, and there was a flea market right down the street on Columbus Avenue. And I walked into the flea market, and I saw items that were being used in the 19th century, the period I was writing about. And it was so exciting to pick up something that my characters were using. And I just responded to it as kind of a passion. And I just began to say, oh my goodness, wouldn't it be fun to just collect it, to buy it, to sell it, to get to know how people lived 100 years ago.
It's a piece of history in your hands. You can't beat it.
It's amazing.
Elise, tell us about your store.
Okay, so I just opened Valley Vintage. It's at 168 South Valley Road in West Orange, which is down in the valley, kind of on the border of South Orange, West Orange, and Orange. We're really excited about it. I had found last year a very old building in need of repairs, and the moment I walked inside, I knew that it was going to be my future antique store. It's a fabulous old building, and we've refurbished it and moved in about 25 dealers. Each one has their own individual space, and I am the proprietor, and I sell things for them, and I live my dream every single day.
What are the range of antiques you have at the store?
So because I have 25 dealers, it's a great range of things. It's a very diverse group, and I would say we have a good assortment of furniture, vintage vinyl, which is always exciting. We've got some vintage clothing, fabulous. We've got jewelry, of course, and fashion accessories. There's a lot of mid-century furniture and lighting and decor. And we also specialize in historical items. And Barry's one of the finest dealers I've ever met.
Is Barry a historical item?
I'm historical.
He is our historical item, yes.
Political things. We have postcards.
That's true. We have a fantastic postcard.
Postcards are unbelievable from every place. It's incredible. Talking about antiques, Barry, what's the first antique you ever bought in your life? Do you remember that?
I actually do. It was in Vermont, and it was a leather chair with a rip down the seat. It was at an auction, and I bought it for $5. And I drove down the street, and I sold it to a dealer on the street in Vermont for $35. And I said, oh my God, how is this possible that I could buy something for $5 and sell it the next day for $35? And I was hooked.
Incredible. And Elise, what's your first antique?
My first love was enamelware. The market is a little bit softer now than it used to be, but I just fell in love with it. And I would say my first 50 purchases were probably that kind of thing. So
You talked about the market. The market is interesting because it goes up and down. I know at one time Hummels were very popular and very expensive. Now, not so much. I know at one time wicker furniture was hot, now not so much. Oak was considered big, not so much. What's the trend now in antiques? What are people looking for? What's hot?
We've got a fascinating group of people that shop at our store. The age of the people who shop there is much younger than what I remember from places that I've been before. I would say our average age is between 35 to 50. So it's young families with children commuting into the city. It's a very cosmopolitan group. And they're looking for things that are both decorative and usable and interesting and historical. So it's really a very nice mix that the people buy there. We haven't quite figured out which thing, except for megalodon teeth, which happens to be a very big seller there.
What is that?
That's
a long word.
I have.
You got paid by the word. You have something.
A megalodon is a shark that has gone extinct the last 3 million years, and I have a number of fossil shark teeth, and they are unbelievably attractive to all kinds of people.
I love it.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Now, Elise said that young people are into antiques. Why is that, Barry? Why are the young people into the antiques?
People buy things that speak to them. A young woman came into the shop. She's come in several times now, but she was in just last week, and I had a first edition, the Bloomsbury edition from England of a Harry Potter book, not the American edition, which you see all the time. And it's not inexpensive. She loves Harry Potter. She loved that book. She bought it. She had to put some money down and come back the next day, but she did. So people buy things that speak to them. They're not necessarily antique, but they could be vintage. They could be from their own past. And this was a very young woman, so her past was only maybe 8 years ago.
Wow.
But it still spoke to her. And there are things that speak to you that you look for.
You speak to me right now on the air.
I speak to you a number of times.
Elise, what's the best thing you ever bought? The best purchase? You said, "Wow, I can't believe I got that. I can't believe I sold it for what." Was there something in?
Okay, so in the interest of show and tell, we've bought a number of items.
I see.
With
We're going
us.
to do that in our second
And
half.
I have to say, I have something fantastic that I bought, and I keep it in the store in a very dark corner where nobody can see it, so that perhaps nobody will ever buy it from me. And it is this
here it is.
fantastic Coney Island Pepsi tray. It's marked Pepsi on the outside. The condition is fantastic, and it's got little people on the Cyclone and on all the other rides on Coney Island, and they're even swimming in the water and on the beach. And it's in fantastic condition. So,
It's a wonderful.
I have my bathing suit on. Let's go to Coney Island.
Coney Island is iconic,
Oh,
as
it is.
Brooklyn is. So that's a very, very hot topic. Anything Coney Island.
And Barry, the same question. What's the best thing you ever bought that kind of,
God.
wow.
It's like, which of your children do you?
Yeah.
And there are things that really stunned me. I was in Europe once, and I was at a flea market there, and I bought a bag of marbles for like $10. I didn't know much about marbles, but I knew these were good. And they were really old, handmade, with swirls and with flecks of gold in them. And there must have been 30 or 40 marbles in the bag, and I bought it for, as I said, $10. I ended up selling the contents for about $600 or $800, and I wasn't getting as much as I could afford them. I was selling them quickly. So it's that kind of thing where you find something so beautiful and so unexpected. It's happened a number of times, but that's one that just came to mind.
Well, it does. It brings back your past. It's holding history. I tell out to my wife every time I bring something in the house, another thing, and I say, "But sweetie, you're holding history."
But you're also learning all the time when we do this. We get into categories. We see something, we love it, we buy it. We don't know much about it, but then we learn about it, and that's, I think, that really is a lot of the joy is really learning about all these little things, and you never know what tomorrow will bring. So every day's a treasure hunt.
Wow. Are antiques a good investment, I mean, to buy an antique? Is it
it's
something
one of the
that's...
few things that you can go into a store and buy today that will be worth at least as much as what you bought it for in 10 years and maybe much more. So, yes, I think it's a fine investment as long as you keep your things nice and take care of them.
It's tricky, though.
In what way?
It can't be a fad. My mother bought some Beanie Babies for her grandchildren, thinking she was going to do very well by them. Not so much. Buy quality, buy good condition, as we know. spend a little bit more than you're comfortable spending if you want it to increase in value, and you'll have a much better chance than buying something that's perhaps a little damaged or perhaps cheap, too cheap, unless you really know what you're doing. So it can be, but you have to know what you're doing.
Now you have stocks and bonds, but antiques, it's an investment. You can have fun with it. You can hold it. You can play with it. I mean, it's just an incredible thing. You've been in business how long now? You just opened up recently, right?
Yep, the store opened up. We had our grand opening 4 weeks ago. We actually opened the back half of the store a couple of months before that, and then did renovations on the front. So yeah, we're hot off the presses. 2 weeks ago, we got our signage up on the building. So it really wasn't until the
Congratulations.
until the signage went up that people really knew we had arrived.
And Mike, it's a beautiful place. You've been in it.
I've been in it. It's
Elise
gorgeous.
She's modest, but she did such an amazing job. It's an environment that you go into. We got lovely music playing. You want to dance when you walk in.
I do want to dance.
You do?
I really
because
do.
the music is so good. But you're surrounded by this beautiful stuff, well lit, good dealers, well presented, neat. It really is. It's as everyone's saying, this is what Maplewood, South Orange, West Orange needed for a long, long time.
What makes a good antique person? What is that quality that you have that kind of you want to go and buy and do? And
Curiosity.
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 Passion.
Yep.
Passion is good.
I mean, loving some area. You talked about Hummels a minute ago. They're not my thing, although I do buy them and sell them. Some people love Hummels, and if you look at them carefully, they're beautifully made. There are people that respond to all kinds of different things, and if you respond to one kind of thing, that's it. That's for you, and then you're a good antique person.
To me, I know I love trains. I have a Lionel train collection, big layout and everything. And why do I love trains so much? And I did a bit of research, and I went back to where the house I lived as a baby. And I remember being in the cradle and looking up, seeing the bars. I remember that. And I remember hearing the sound of trains.
Wow.
I went back to the exact house when I was a baby, and what was there? There was a train station. And I said, my God, that's how I love trains. But what I love about antiques, it brings you back to your childhood. You relive your childhood.
You do. And there's actually, in terms of values of what antiques are valuable when, there's actually a formula that any category that's about 40 years old is going to be at a very high point of value, because when someone is 50 and 60, you've got the money and the means to collect the stuff that you had when you were 5 and 10 and 15. And when you're older than that, you may not be that interested in it, or you may not have, So there is that. That's why the 50s became very popular a few years ago.
It's you say the childhood, because when I was a child, I wanted a Mickey Mouse watch. Yeah. I went to the jeweler; they only had a Donald Duck. Oh. So my parents bought me the Donald Duck, and I liked it, but I was disappointed in it. Now that I have some bucks, I own 3 Mickey Mouse, vintage Mickey Mouse watches, and I'm going, now it only took me like 65 years, but I have my Mickey Mouse watch. Yeah. I think that has a lot to do with antiques. Yeah. Kind of to relive your childhood. Yeah. Get the things that you were deprived of as a child. My God, it's here on the shelf. I can have it, play with it, have fun with it. Anyway, we're going to go to the second half. But what we're going to do is look at some of these wonderful, wonderful things that Elise and Barry brought. So stick by for the second half. We're going to do a little commercial announcement, public service announcement, and we'll be right back. So don't touch that dial.
I call you and say, I'm with your son. There's been an accident and he's in jail. He needs bail money, and you actually believe me. So you send cash fast and then bye-bye. Think you're too smart to fall for this? Just last year, 150 million Americans weren't. 1 out of 3 of your neighbors lost $500. Can you believe it? You shouldn't. I made that up too. Maybe you will believe everything you're told.
And welcome back to part 2. We're going to go into some of these wonderful, wonderful things In fact, I don't normally do this, but for you, Barry, I'm going to model this.
Oh, would you please? Would you
Okay.
please? Yeah, you're much
He's
better.
been dying to, right?
I have been dying to put this hat on.
Officer, I'll come quietly. That is a policeman's hat from New York or New Jersey, from the very end of the 19th century, perhaps 1890, 1891.
Wow.
Yes. And I found it at an estate sale, just sitting
At
there.
an estate sale.
Yeah, nobody knew what it was.
You go to an estate sale, you wonder, well, what's the history? How did this happen? And
How did
most
I
people
get
don't
there?
know, but it's just a wonderful part of history.
Yeah, but these things are highly collected. Anything that's police or
Oh, yeah.
military or, again, part of our history.
Badges are big,
Badges are
and
big, sure.
buttons and
All those
everything.
things. People
And,
love that kind of thing.
Now, I promise you I haven't had anything to drink before I came. I'm totally sober, but I'm noticing a lot of pink elephants here. Tell us about the pink elephants.
So one of the things that we do at Valley Vintage that is a little bit different than the traditional antique store is that I think we have a lot of items that are whimsical in nature. So they're less serious. So I thought it would be nice to bring something that was whimsical and yet usable. So I bought
You're not
a
talking about
variety-
Barry, are you?
Well,
I am whimsical and
Okay.
not that useful.
he's the best, Barry. So I bought a bunch of items that have pink elephants in them. This is a shaving mug, probably from the 40s.
Wow.
And a bottle opener, probably from the late 40s. And another bottle opener, little pink elephant with a guitar, probably from the 60s, maybe even the early 70s. So I thought it represents, some of the things that we do at Valley Vintage, and that is items that are decorative and usable. And whimsical all at the same time.
And we also have items at all price points. There's a number of items for $1 each.
Really? So you don't have to have a lot of money
you don't have to have
collect?
a lot of money to have fun and to buy some nice things. Items for $5, $3, $7, $10. And then, of course, higher priced items as well. But anybody could walk in and really have a good time. And it's such a feast for the eyes,
Oh, I love
as
it.
you know.
I love it. I love your place.
Thank
my
you
God.
very much.
I'm going to get a cot in the back, and that's where I'm going to be.
Okay.
Now, this is interesting. Tell us about this. Is
It's a very, very
heavy key.
formidable key.
Whoa.
That I got that key in France. I go to France whenever I can in the summer, and I have friends there, and I go to the flea markets there. And I bring home, among other things, keys. People love to collect keys. Again, it's a useful item, but it's a decorative item. Small keys people can put around as, on chains. But they for some reason, they love keys. And that's one of the most interesting keys I've seen because it weighs a lot. It was repaired.
Wow.
It might have been for a church or perhaps a prison. And you don't see keys that were so important that they were repaired. And that's a really interesting key in my opinion.
do you find certain antiques in France that you wouldn't find in the United States?
Absolutely.
What are some of the things you'd find overseas?
Well, it's like corkscrews. Well, duh, French and wine and corkscrews, they have types of corkscrews that you rarely see here except in collections. We didn't make those corkscrews ever here. So if they're here, they came from abroad. All kinds of different.
I found an accordion corkscrew,
Yes,
which was very
yes,
interesting.
yes,
I gave
yes.
to a buddy of mine.
Yeah, I have had those.
Those are terrific.
I probably still have a couple.
I mean, the ingenuity.
Oh
is
yeah, but
wonderful.
they open wine in all kinds of ways. But that's just one sort of thing. But they have things that were used for tobacco that we never had. It's advertising that we've never seen, and also military that we've never seen. It's an interesting thing to go to a foreign place.
It
and
is.
see what the collectibles are there. Very different.
Now this I love. This is a magnifying paperweight, or
It's a paperweight.
but it magnifies the picture.
It does. It does. That's interesting because if you get into glass, you could tell by picking up a piece of glass when it was made. See how heavy that is?
Right.
It's a paperweight. We didn't make paperweights that way in the 20th century. They were elegant but that's really got heft. And that is a image of a Revolutionary War general, General Varnum, in a paperweight made perhaps in 1840 or 1830
Wow.
or 1850, because that's the glass around it. So it was made 50 years after the fact, but we're talking about something made in 1830,
That
referring to
survives.
1790.
Yeah.
Oh my heavens.
Wow.
It's very exciting.
That's
And it's very different.
Now, you have a book out, The Art of Buying and Selling at Flea Markets.
Yes.
This is wonderful because people go to a flea, you get lost in a flea market. You don't know where to do, how to negotiate, what to say. Let's say you see something you really like, and this is for both of you. How do you negotiate a price so you don't insult the dealer?
You can start. And
I always tell Barry that I would like him to write another chapter of the book about dealer-to-dealer etiquette, because it's something that dealers really need to understand, and it's important not to be insulting and not to use some canned phrases that we hear all the time. So I think there's a method to it, but I think the most important thing is that you're amusing and kind and thoughtful about the item and appreciative of what it is and what the effort that took it to get for the dealer to get it onto his table. So
that's an important point, appreciative, because what you should not do as a buyer of an object, and I don't do this either, is down talk the object in the hopes of getting a better price.
Exactly.
You like it, the person who owns it loves it.
Sure.
Acknowledge it's a wonderful thing. Could you give me your best? And then you flatter the person by saying, this really is nice. I really like this. What can you do for me on this? I'm on a budget. But don't be negative and don't try to try to make an allegiance with the dealer rather than make an antagonistic relationship.
You know, it's always good to ask, and you'll know this, Elise and Barry. Ask if there's a story involving the item you're buying, because sometimes the story is more interesting than the item.
Yeah,
Right.
That's right. The story is. That book, by the way, is now an e-book, so it can be purchased on on Amazon and other platforms for far less than the book itself costs.
It's terrific.
As a shameless plug.
Can I negotiate the
And
price
result.
on this?
You can negotiate.
and have it signed.
Have it signed.
Now, you guys have been doing this a long time. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Elise. What's the most unusual, crazy thing that you've ever bought or experienced in your shops or outside your shop? Some wacko that you go, I can't believe this is out there.
Take Barry first. I'm
Barry,
going to
all right.
for a while.
Yes,
Sorry.
Barry, the most unusual,
Unusual
crazy thing.
or unusual.
Most unusual, I can't believe, like a...
I know what comes to mind. It's not a thing, and it's a little bit of a different take on your question. But I had somebody shoplift from me once, and it was in New York City.
Wow.
I was selling at the flea market. I'm responding now to unbelievable, because he was an old man and he put this thing right in his pocket in front of me, and I was stunned at my reaction, which was outrage. I said, I felt like a parent to a naughty child.
Exactly.
And he was then about 20 years old. I said, what do you think you're doing? I mean, I scolded him. He took it out of his pocket. He put it back on the table. I didn't report him. But it's never happened to me. I have been shoplifted, of course. We all have at some point. But not much. Let me just say, the people in this business are so wonderfully honest.
They are.
They are.
really are.
If you have gold and it's sitting out, be very, 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 very careful.
Sure.
But that's the extent of it. With these collectibles, very few people are going to take them. But in this one case, I was just personally hurt that he was doing this to me, and it stands out in my memory because it was such an unusual experience. So it's not quite answering your question, but that's...
Okay, Elise, you got a second chance
Okay,
here.
good. But I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So
Okay.
I'm going to tell you the greatest thing that I ever did while I was in this business. So I had a small time when I was in between jobs. And it was the best time of my life because I had just become really involved in the antique business and I was living the dream. So I took a 2-week trip to Florida in my car, just me, 4 wheels, and an empty station wagon, and drove down to Florida and back and loaded the car up on the way, making stops all along the
Great,
way.
right.
And I have to say, it was the best 2 weeks of my entire life that I got the opportunity to see the country and it just shop from here to Florida. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And especially having a big car to load this
Yeah,
stuff.
and a big
Yeah.
empty car
A big
at the
empty
beginning.
car
Yeah.
is always great. Again, this is a new store, and we love it because it's such a sense of greatness when you walk in, and it's airy and it's sunny and it's not like a dingy. I've gone into a lot of attics and basements, and it's kind of scary. But your place is a welcoming, wonderful Wonderful
It's clean
place.
and it's bright, and there's so much stuff there. And it's bigger than anybody thinks.
That's true. That's what we
It
tell
is.
everybody.
That's our motto, because you walk into that one large room, which is sensational, but then you walk down 2 stairs and you've got 2 more rooms.
A whole nother store down there.
Equally big. And it goes on, and there's something for everyone.
Right.
I saw Jimmy Hoffa down there. So,
That's the basement.
In the basement.
in the basement.
Sub-basement.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
What makes a person a good antique buyer? What is that quality? I mean,
To buy successfully.
to buy successfully. What is there a formula, or is it just buy what you love and eventually it'll go up in value? Is there a certain formula or a certain?
Well, I'll take the first piece of this, because this is something I'm very bad at.
Okay.
And I've been in this for 30 years. Don't be impetuous. Really look at something. And I see something and I get so emotionally in love with it
I'm the same way.
so quickly that I'm not really looking. And I have taken things home, as you probably have, and you might
have.
And you get home and you say, oh my God, there's a crack, a chip, a this, a that.
Exactly.
I didn't see it and I had all the time in the world. No one was rushing me. So one of the keys is to control yourself and to really don't be impetuous. Just don't buy it so quickly. You can hold on to it. 'Cause
Don't
if you
put it down.
Don't put it down. but let your heartbeat go down a couple of notches so that you're really looking, and look critically, because you may see something that you would miss.
Exactly.
That's one thing that is for me.
But you know, today with technology, buying antiques is a whole different thing. I've seen people look at something at a flea market, they go onto their iPhones and they research it.
Yes, they do.
I saw a piece of memorabilia. It was a vending machine, and I loved it. And I said, I never heard of it. I'm going to research it. And I researched it, and I saw a picture of that vending machine, and I realized a lot of that was missing. And if I hadn't had the iPhone, I wouldn't have known.
wouldn't
I don't
have
have
known.
that knowledge. You know,
course
I
not.
have some knowledge, but don't you think that's changed a lot, technology and
Yes.
eBay and Craigslist, and it's a whole different way of buying. But I think that I'm not really a computer person. I like to see it. I like to touch it. I like to feel it. I mean, I think that's part of the excitement of buying antiques. We have 1 more minute left, so tell me the address of my new home.
Okay, so your new home is at 168
Okay.
South Valley Road in West Orange, 2,100 square feet, tons of lovely things. Come and see us. Plan to spend a couple of hours, because as Barry said, we're bigger than you think.
There's lots of parking on the street.
Good.
And behind the building, there's a parking lot.
Yep, that people can use.
The greatest praise for your store, I'll go in, I'll say, oh, I only want to spend 10 minutes. I'm there for like an hour. You know, I can't leave. It's just so many fascinating things. Thank you, guys. It's been a great show. I love all this stuff. And remember, Valley Vintage is the place to be. So this is Mike Sobel saying good night to you, and especially to you.